Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and it turns out that I do know how to smoke a pork butt because everybody enjoyed my butt last night that I cooked. The barbecue was great, and my wife cooked some of the best banana pudding that I've had in quite a while. I don't eat sweets very often. I do pretty low carb, but I decided that I was going to make an exception to the rule last night, and I had some of the banana pudding. It was really good, and I think it was my mother-in-law's recipe. So credit where credit's due, right? So first, I wanted to give a shout out to Michael at VAL5 Links. This guy, I was looking through some of the messages he sent me with some different news articles. This guy, for those of you that don't know, this guy wakes up. He must wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning because he starts sending, like, pounding me with good information at around 5 in the morning. And so he's an early, you know what they say, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man, something and wise, healthy, wealthy, and wise, I think. But this guy right here is on it with crypto Twitter. Okay, first thing he sent me. Now, what I'm about to go over with you is most of this is things having to do with Donald Trump's tweet where he does not like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, But I'm going to make an overall point that I've made on this channel many, many times. The first thing you need to understand before I go over all this is where I was coming from when I entered digital assets. I always loved and remember, I am no more a fan of banks and central banks than anyone that you know. I think that what they did during the financial crisis was awful, and you've heard me talk about this many, many times. When I began to invest in digital assets, I've said this a lot of times on this channel. When I began to invest in digital assets, the appeal of them really was from that anarchist standpoint, because I think that the government really overstepped their governments around the world overstepped their boundaries with the investing public and just with the public in general when they did those bailouts. I've always said that. I think that was a defining moment of arrogance on the part of the powers that be, and that's where Bitcoin was born. But here's the but, and this is the reason I went in the direction of XRP. Bitcoin to me always represented the anarchist point of view, okay? And I agree with most of what those people's philosophy is in terms of the reasons that we need to get government out of all of this currency stuff. I agree with all of that. I do. The problem is I'm investing in this to make money. I'm not investing based on my philosophy. And it comes down to a very simple concept for me. I'm 45 years old now. I guess when I started doing this, I was in my late 30s. But anyway, I'm older now. I've been through the dot-com crash. I've been through the financial crisis. Got a lot more experience than I had when I was 18 years old. If I was 18 years old and I began to invest in crypto, Bitcoin would be my thing, because I would be like, yeah, this is anti-government. This is our own money, and the government's out of this. That would be what I would do if I was 18 years old. But at age 45, and this is why I began to invest in XRP, one of the many reasons. At age 45, I look at this landscape and I say, okay, well, you got Bitcoin over here who has no leader, there is nobody that's leading the charge, and that's step one. I've learned that you got to have a leader and an organized group of people to get anything done in life. But the most important part of this is I saw that Ripple was going to the government bodies and the banks and trying to head off at the pass. No, we want to work with governments. And the reason they were doing that is on the basic, simple premise that ultimately, you're never going to get rid of the powers that be. That is not going to happen. Now, at 18, maybe I would have thought something like that, but at 45, I know better. And that reason really irritates a lot of the Bitcoin maximalists. But that is the facts of life, folks. And I talked to, there's been, during the bear market, there were many times when I spoke a lot to the young people out there that you need to put your big boy pants on and quit whining about the market. This is a very volatile market, and you've got to understand the big picture of what you're involved in here. And along those same lines, that's why I'm an XRP investor. It's not because when it comes to this life-changing investment that I believe it is, I'm not going to let personal philosophies cloud my judgment on what makes sense. And XRP makes sense. Ripple going to the regulators and having worked with the regulators for the last 7 years makes sense. That's the grown-up thing to do. And the grown-up thing is what's going to win here ultimately. And I've always believed that, and I still believe it. Now let me show you these tweets that'll round out my point here. This is from Michael at VAL5 Links. And he sent this. This is from Mark Yusko. Now, he's a Bitcoin guy. He says, Dear POTUS, money is a medium of exchange for goods or services within an economy. Therefore, Bitcoin is money. Some money is fiat, meaning it has no intrinsic value. That is, paper or metal used to create. It is not worth much in terms of its value as a raw material. That is USD. Now, I agree with everything Mark Yusko says, but the problem Mark Yusko has is that Bitcoin is obviously in some way at odds with the powers that be. When you have the President of the United States saying something like that, there's an issue there. So, even though I agree with everything Mark Yusko says, where would I rather be? Now, I'm invested in Bitcoin, and I will continue to be. I think Bitcoin will do well in the short, medium, and long run. But for the big picture, for the big money, for the life-changing investment, it's XRP, and it always has been. Because you don't try to fight. I remember a Brady Bunch episode when I was a kid. I remember Mike, the dad, Mike Brady, I think is his name. I remember one time they had an episode, and there was the saying, you can't fight City Hall, which means don't think that you're going to go and fight the powers that be, because you're going to lose every time. And that's what I've learned at 45. But I do think Bitcoin, I think that they'll work out some kind of thing where Bitcoin can exist and all that. It's not that I think that they're going to destroy it. I just think XRP is going to be holding the hands with these powerful people. Okay, and I think that's a good thing for my wallet. Mark Yusko also came in and said this, Dear President, you say Bitcoin's value is based on error. Could you answer a few questions for me? Can I surrender my USD to government for gold or silver? Can I surrender my USD to government for share of tax revenue? Who sets value of USD? Hasn't USD lost 95% of purchasing power since 1913? Again, I agree with everything that Mark Yusko is saying here. He's right. He's 1,000% right. But who's the winner? Who's the ultimate winner going to be? The people, the digital asset, whose major use case is a company that's working with the powers that be, or is it going to be the people that are trying to fight the powers that be? I've picked my winner. Next from XRP James T at XRP James. And this is another great tweet from John McAfee. The doomed attempt to regulate crypto and why it is doomed. Well, Anthony Pompliano said it on his CNBC interview. The one way that they could regulate crypto would be to declare it illegal to own it. Now, that wouldn't prevent it worldwide because they're not going to get that coordinated. But McAfee makes some really good points in this video. It's worth going and watching. Next, from Brian Melancholy XRP at Mike Honcho _11 sent me this one. Ben Shapiro, the government manipulates currency values. Independent forms of currency not subject to the political whims of powerful people are good. And yes, he's right. Again, he's right. But Bitcoin obviously is at odds with Donald Trump, and that's not necessarily a good thing for Bitcoin. The exposure is a good thing. And then from @TrooperXRP, and here's where my point really is. 9th of July, Donald Trump sits next to Christine Lagarde at dinner. 12th of July, he posts about Bitcoin. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. And this is his tweet, and this is the pic. That's Trump, and that's Christine Lagarde, who is a big fan of Ripple, who Brad Garlinghouse has been in several pictures with her and some of her central bank friends. And next, from NBK Crypto, @NBKLYRAD. So this one, okay, now Peter Schiff is coming out, and he's saying you Bitcoin people ought to be scared, is basically what he's saying. I wonder if Trump's tweet about his not being a Bitcoin fan and his specific reference to unlawful behavior, drug trade, and other illegal activity is a precursor to a federal legislative crackdown on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Ignore this risk at your peril. And then someone came in, this Trexia XRP came in and replied. This is a quote from an article where I remember showing you this article a while back. This was Matthew Mellon, who bought like a ton of XRP and then died, and his private keys were lost. But this is a quote from the article. Crypto is scary and dark. It's anti-America, says Mellon 54. I'm pro-America, pro-business, and pro-bank. That's why I went with Ripple XRP. Mellon's XRP is worth around $1 billion. Well, I fall somewhere in the middle of this. I am pro-American. I am pro-business. I am not pro-bank. I am not pro-bank. Well, and the banks and the central banks have that. They have lost my faith in them, and that's their fault. That is not my fault. And I think many Americans fall into that same category. I think many of us view the banks and the central banks as anti-American or anti-whatever your country is. That's where I'm coming from. But when it comes to my investments in digital assets, XRP has always been the one because Ripple has done the smart thing. And that's where I stand on that. Okay, and next from Chinu Patel @ChinuPatel29. This is from Lionel. If you are going to buy crypto, you buy the coin that has worked closely with the regulators, XRP, to satisfy regulators, not the coins that think can bring governments down. It will never happen. 90% of the world prefer to be governed. A few anarchists won't bring down anything. And then you have XRP daring. Look at this. Do you think it's a coincidence? He says, haha, nobody threatens the global reserve currency. Facebook to be slapped with a $5 billion fine for privacy lapses, says report. Do you think that this was 18 hours ago? Do you think this is any coincidence that all of a sudden they announced they're going to come out with a digital asset that the government feels threatened by, and all of a sudden they're getting slapped with a $5 billion fine? I don't believe in those kind of coincidences myself. Okay, and finally, this was hilarious. Mr. B sent me this morning. I have not talked to my wife about this, about seeing if I can get into Crypto Bitlord's group, but I don't think she's going to be a taker. LOL, it's time for a giveaway. First 3 persons to write my name on their girlfriend's ads get 6 months access to my crypto private group, plus Signals, Signals channel. Signals combined smashed over 450% since May. Must upload photo in the thread, GL, and make it count. I'm not going to go and show you all of the people that have done what he asked them to do, but apparently they now have access to his private crypto group. I don't think the digital asset investor is going to be getting access to this crypto group. I can pretty much promise you that, but I thought this was funny enough to show you. I'm a digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family that Crypto Bitlord is doing a giveaway. Thanks for listening.